As I mentioned today, we're just going to go over some tips and tricks with actions. So some people might already know a bunch of these, but these are some that come up quite often. And so I'm either answering questions about these or use them myself just to help me with my workflow and things like that. So to get started, here we have a table of contents. So this is kind of a trick within my trick of workbooks here. And we're actually going to use it. So the table of contents, basically, whenever I click on one of these actions, it's going to take me to a different dashboard. So to start off, that took us, sorry, sometimes I forget that I added a clicking action to it, so it goes straight to it. So the table of contents, actually let's go straight to this. So basically, in order to make this, you're going to create a worksheet, and you're just going to create a bunch of calculated fields. And the calculated fields, they're just going to be strings. So you can type in whatever you like in there. So this one, as you can see, is just email actions. I threw it on there, didn't put anything else. I changed my mark type to shape so that I could add this cool little arrow. And then I did some basic formatting to change the font. And up here, I removed the show field labels, hide field labels. And so I did that for each of these worksheets. And then I just simply put them all on a table of contents here. Then from here, and put them on a dashboard together. And you kind of have to mix it or adjust it accordingly to get it, like my squares here aren't exactly perfectly lined up. But if you really want to, you can get into it. So from there, let's look at some of our actions. So if I'm looking at this email action, I created a filter action by just selecting filter. Let's go in and edit. And it's really important that you choose the correct source sheet and your correct target sheet. So if you notice, all of my worksheets are under this table of contents dashboard, and I chose only email and I chose select because when I hit select, I want to go straight to it. But now I also want to make sure that I choose the correct target sheet. So up here, you'll have all your dashboards, and below that, you'll have all your worksheets. And I know that I want to go to my dashboard, so I make sure that I select the correct dashboard, email, and then I just click OK. So you do that for every single worksheet that you want to add as to your table of contents, quote unquote. So that's just the basic table of contents page. From here, we'll go to our email actions. This one's pretty cool. So this is just if you have a list of names and emails in your data, you can create an action, a URL action, that will actually open up your Outlook. So this is just a list of the people who registered for today. So I'll just choose Dustin so that you won't see anybody else's emails. But so if you see, it went directly to an email. It's already set up, so I can just go ahead and start writing something and send it to them right from my email. So to do this, we'll go into Dashboard or Actions, and let's look at this. So this was a URL action. Go ahead and edit it, and you simply type in mail to colon, and then from here you want to choose your email field. And then by using this question mark and subject equals, you can type in whatever you like there, and that will populate the subject line of your email. And then using the I always forget what that character is called, but that and symbol and body equals, you can type in whatever you want that, and that will also fill in your body of your email. So you click OK. Okay. One thing to note here, which is actually kind of funny while I was putting this together, I had accidentally, sometimes when you run a URL action, you'll get a pop-up saying, are you sure that you want to run this URL action? I can't remember the exact words of the error message, but at some point along the way, I had clicked no, and so every time I clicked on anybody's name, even though I had run this URL action and tested it, it wasn't working. So if you ever have this problem where you had accidentally said no to all pop-up URL actions, or I don't want to see these messages again, you can go into Help and just click Show Messages Again, and now they'll start showing up, and then you won't have the problem of not being able to run URL actions. And that all depends on what you select when you say don't show messages again. So actually, let's see here. So here we have the error message. So if I had clicked no here, do not show again, now I'm not getting it to work. So just as something helpful that you might want to know. So here we go. Show messages again. There we go. And it works. So similar, I think that we had a chat question, did we? No. Okay. Okay. So something else that we have, it's also very similar to the table of contents. It's actually the exact same thing. It's just one. So we're using, if you notice down here, I created another calculated field and just threw this onto my dashboard and used another filter action so that when I click on this, it goes back to our table of contents, and it's just a kind of a navigation button. So the next item on the list we have here is using actions as lookups. So this one and highlight are very similar, and this is just something that I use sometimes when I'm trying to compare two different things. I have these big lists of people. Like, for example, I'm in charge of Tableau Doctor this year at our customer conference. And so I'm trying to do all the scheduling, and I'm trying to see which days people are on and which ones they're not on. So one way that you can do this is by clicking an action. So let's see Cindy Chapman. We notice on this thing we have a whole bunch of years, but it's hard to see because we have so many people. So let's just say I want to see Cindy Chapman. Oh, it looks like she took place. She had a lot of sales every single year. 2011 was her best year. It's just kind of, I just like to use this because, like I said, it's an easy way to see in what dimensions you might already have people. So that's very similar to this highlighting one. Like, for example, let's see. So this is, again, our data from registration for TDT. So this is a highlight action. So let's see. I know that Joe Mako registered this week, and it looks like he also registered last week. So it's just a really easy way to make sure that you can see it all. For example, Shani, I know that she did not, she didn't register either week, so there's no other highlighting going on. Here we have the quick filter. So this is nice for when you want to make global filters. This actually, now I'm thinking about it, isn't the best example of this. But so you want to, let's say you have a global filter, or you want to use a global filter you only want to use one data source. You don't have to duplicate your data source in order to have the global filter work across multiple sheets. except for that one sheet that you don't want the filter to work on. So you can do this by creating a quick filter, if you will, which is basically just going to be a list of your dimensions, and then run the action on every single, run the filter on every single sheet, and have it, direct it to every single sheet except for the one that you want. So like I said, I didn't show this very well, but I guess we could create another one really quickly. So what did we even have up there? Oops. Container. So container, we'll put order date, shipping cost. Let's create another sheet. Do category, container, profit ratio. And let's see here. Oops. Just get rid of that for now. I went a little too fast. Are you showing us a way to have a globe filter that doesn't impact every sheet in the workbook? Yes. Sorry. Okay. So I'll take a step back. So in this sheet, in this dashboard, I've just created 3 sheets that I want to have a quote unquote global filter. So let's say we want it to affect step 2 up here, and we want it to affect sheet 18, but we don't want it to affect sheet 17. So if we put a regular global filter on, let's put container up here. Let's say okay, and we'll make this global. Oops. And let's show this quick filter. So it doesn't seem, you know what, I think I'm using 2 different data sources here. This is kind of backfiring on me right now. Sorry about this. So this is affecting all the sheets except for this one because it's a different worksheet. And we'll just create a new one altogether. Okay. Container. Okay. So let's take this guy off. And we'll put this guy up. All right. So now you can see this global filter is affecting all of our sheets here. But let's say instead of having it affect every sheet, we only want it to affect sheet 18 and 19. So what we can do is create a quote unquote quick filter. We'll throw it up here all by itself. Let's make this local and remove this. Go back here. Take this off because we're not actually using a quick filter. Let's rename this. So we don't get confused. Oh. We'll just call it QF. we'll put it up over here. So now what we can do is we'll go to Dashboard and Actions. We'll remove this since we're not using that anymore. Create a filter, and we want to make our quick filter worksheet our source sheet, because that's going to control all of our worksheets. And we said we wanted it to affect only sheets 18 and 19. So we'll take 17 off, and step 1, I don't even, oh, that's our other quick filter. So we'll select, choose select, click OK. OK. And now when we hit Jumbo Drum, it's only affecting those 2 sheets. Now the one thing about this is that you, in order to have multiple selections on here, you either need to press Control or Shift to get multiple. So it's just something to keep in mind. So I hope that makes sense. I'm sorry I was a little disorganized there for a minute, but I think we're back on track. So finally, similar to that is actions are really great because they're a way to filter across multiple data sources. So if you have similar data, but they're coming from 2 different sources, you can use an action and run them along there. So for example, in this example, we have, we're using both the Access coffee chain data and the Excel Superstore data. And we've used sheet 13, and that is filtering everything on this. So I'll go ahead and show you what our actions look like on here. So filter 5. So sheet 13, we know that's what we want, and we want it to affect every sheet except probably back. We've used select, and we only want it to affect our region. So we're going to use selected fields, and we're going to choose region, and then from here it will automatically choose region, or it will automatically choose your same source that you're coming from. So then you just go back and you choose region. And then since we're using 2 different data sources, you want to make sure you add a second filter, and you choose the second data source, or the other one that you're using, and choose coffee chain. And since region marks up with market, you click OK, and then it will affect each worksheet accordingly. So I think that's all that I have. I think Dustin has something that he put together, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him.
Hear me okay? Oh,
yes.
There we go. All right. So Dustin Smith, Community Manager here at Tableau Software. I love this topic. I am a huge actions fan, and I probably get in more trouble with actions than I should, since I'm always trying to figure out how I can make something an action when it probably should just be something else. But that's okay. That's what I'm here to do, is get into trouble. I'm going to go ahead and share my monitor, and then I'm actually going to change up my screen resolution just a little bit. Hopefully make it a little easier for folks to see. There we go. Keep changes. All right. So can everyone see the Tableau workbook that's on my desktop there? Go ahead and chat something in the chat window if things are looking okay. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Shani. So here's one that I built really early in my career. I've been here for about 2 years. And so it's not pretty, but it's kind of cool. The thing that I like the most about this is that it actually uses our URL actions, which in my book is the unsung hero of Tableau Desktop. And the way that we were talking about filter actions and some highlight actions. Well, Tableau can also kind of do these URL actions off of given data points and things like that. So in this dashboard I've got built here, I've got this batter selector component where I was attempting to build for AccuScore this little kind of baseball stats widget that they might be able to embed on their website. And I wanted to kind of have one of those leaderboard type things where it's got all the right information in here and it's got all these different pictures. And one of the things I struggled with was, well, I want this dashboard to be able to filter through player images really, really quickly. And so I went out, and I'm actually going to show you guys what my shapes folder looks like just because it's hilarious. And I thought, custom shapes, that's what I'm going to use. All of these custom shapes. Here you go. Here's an image of here's what my folder for my custom shapes looks like, my library. All right, I've got all these crazy logos for teams and things like that. And I was really big on making sure I could use custom shapes for all sorts of stuff. I've got a bunch of baseball players and stuff in here. This is kind of how I went about approaching things. Well, what I figured out though was when you get to a point where maybe you've got like 40 or 50 or 60 images and you downloaded them from the web or something like that, and you're trying to use those inside of a big workbook, well, if each one of those images, let's say, is 20 KB and you've got 100 of them, well, pretty soon that starts to stack up, especially if you're publishing this online. And so what I got to the point with, especially with baseball, because I've got so many players, was I needed a better way to allow these images to change, right? So I've actually got a little action set up here. You'll notice as I'm hovering over these, those baseball images for those players are changing. And I think this was just a text widget. The text is staying the same there. I hadn't set up that action yet. But again, this is an old draft. But the cool part about this is I'm getting the logo and the name change up at the top, and I'm also getting that player image. And the way I ended up doing this was this top part, because these images are really small, these little logos, I actually went ahead and used a custom shape and a filter action on those, right? So there's my custom shape, and I set up, you can see I've got all these actions set up, but effectively just like the way that Tracy showed where you can hit a filter action and it'll change out who that is. The cool thing about this one, though, is that this is not a filter action. This is actually a web page object. So if I go here, right, I placed out a web object and put in a URL. And the cool thing about URL objects or URL actions is that you can point them at web objects in your dashboard. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. I'm going to go back into my dashboard, and I'm going to show you the data set that I was working with. And so this is something we were working with CBS and AccuScore on. And you'll notice the very first column I have here is actually a URL. And it is the direct link out to their JPEGs. Each one of them, for each one of the baseball players, is the CBS ID for that player. And they actually just provided me with this data, and then I figured out, oh, well, they host all of their images up on their servers by this same URL with then just the player ID.jpg attached on the back end. And they were like, yeah, you should use that. It would be really fun and fast. And so I built that into my data set. And as long as I then have that, CBS ID and that CBS image URL, out in the level of detail, doesn't even have to be visible on the image, the actual action I built looks like this, where I said, okay, I wanted to build a hyperlink action. I just called it hyperlink 1. And I wanted it to say, okay, when I click on the bar chart sheet, and on a hover, not on a select, hit this URL, right, for that appropriate data point. And this is that one that's, again, right out of my data set, that image URL that we just looked at. And I put that in there so that when I click on Ichiro, who just got transferred to New York, so it's a sore subject for me right now being in Seattle, but that's okay. I can get through it. You'll notice, this is really interesting, right? The image has been updated on the CBS's website, but when I built this and my custom image, he was still playing for Seattle. So this is also kind of a fun way if you're dealing with data or images or something that is going to be changing rapidly, right, and you don't want to have to worry about always pulling down custom shapes for it. using that image or using that URL to kind of point at that is really, really handy. And so it's kind of fun because this is also a really lightweight way to make the workbook itself skinnier. I think this workbook is about 2 megabytes, which is pretty fat when I think about publishing things to the web. But it's really fast, right? It's as fast as those image servers can serve up that image back to Tableau. The custom image here and then the URL, image being served up here are about the same in desktop. But when you publish this up, it actually is funny because the image URL powered by that URL action is just the same speed. And this one, the team logo, is actually just a hair slower. So when we think about publishing up to Tableau Server, or we think about Tableau Public, Tableau Digital, using those URL actions to actually power some sort of image object on your or your web object on your dashboard can be extremely powerful. So that's a fun one for me. That was kind of one of the pro tips that I learned early on, and it was pretty cool. It tends to get me into trouble sometimes because I find myself scraping data or image URLs sometimes off the web, but especially if it's a scenario like this one with CBS where all I really had to do was they gave me the image ID and I just kind of back end the URL, hacked the URL, we're good to go. Let me check to see if there are any questions on how I did that. Okay, cool. It doesn't look like there are any questions. Let me know if I'm going too fast or if you want to walk through how I did that a little bit with the data. I use a lot of player images because I think that's a fun way to do it. I've seen people do this with sample slides inside of a research laboratory. They've got a lot of images living inside a database, and they want a way from a dashboard to be able to say, okay, here are the samples over time, and when you click on a specific one, it brings up an image of that sample. I've seen this used when autotrader.com, they're talking about different car inventories and things like that. I mean, really, anytime you've got a lot of something that you want to serve up, and you don't necessarily want to package that information or those images or things like that inside of the workbook, using that URL action is actually a pretty smart way to do it. So it's pretty cool. All right, what else have I got to talk about from the action standpoint? Let's see here. Here's a fun one. So again, a lot of sports stuff because that's what I used to work on pretty early on. I'm going to minimize this one. Here is one. Let's see if I can find the right one here. Here's another one we worked on with CBS. Oops. Make it a little bigger here so we can see. Okay. So this one was called the batter projections, and this was working with Al Melchior at CBS to really kind of, takes that stats to the next level. And his fans were always like, I want to be able to take a batting statistics like, batting average or home runs or runs batted in or something like that, and then have, that stat pop up for me, right, in a list of who's top, right, all the way down to who's not doing so well. And then what Al said, though, is, what is really cool, though, is they want to be able to click on, like, Victor Martinez and see what it's been like for him over the last couple of years. And this is another interesting thing when we talk about publishing to the web is you don't always get a lot of real estate. So this one is 630 pixels by 1,000 pixels, right? He had a lot of top to bottom room, but not a lot of width. And he goes, I don't want to put another thing down here, but I don't necessarily want to sacrifice a lot of space right here if I don't have to. And what we realized was this is a perfect case for using filter actions in combination with layout containers. So let me show you. If I click Victor Martinez, what has happened down here is that we've actually got a little tiny line chart that's appeared. Likewise, if I go back up here, and this, again, when I'm not in my small resolution screen, you can see it happen in real time. But now I've got two of them. And then if I clear it, the bar chart just kind of eats up the rest of that space. So it's dynamically powering. Here's a little better example. Now if I hold down Control, I get to, it's kind of dynamically putting in those line charts when we ask for them, and then as soon as we clear that action filter, they go away. So this is a really cool trick, using those action filters that Tracy just talked about in combination with, in this case, I think it's a vertical layout container. And so the way you do that is you build your two sheets, and then you set up that action. And again, this is based on player ID number. to look like, I mean, very straightforward. Sheet 6, this is that list of players, that bar chart, and then sheet 3, that is that line chart. And clearing the selection will exclude all values. So this is an important part because this is what allows us to click off of the bar chart up top and then have the bottom chart disappear entirely. And it's pretty cool because if that dynamic little container wasn't there, so if we go to, where's my container? Select layout container. You can kind of see this little line down here. Well, that tells me that this top visual is not the only thing in this layout container, and that I can actually drag this. See, as I start to drag this out a little bit, like if I just put this over here, and it's going to look terrible. But suddenly, if I select this right here, oh, it went with it over there, so that wasn't a good example, the layout container. Another really cool trick, this is kind of my beginning example, another really cool trick, kind of the next level up from something like that, is when we get a lot where we'll have, let me bring this one over. Using actions is a great way where people say, you know what, I don't want to limit my people. I love to give them interactivity with their desktop, with their dashboards, whether that's published online or they're using Reader or something like that, where I want to give them the ability using parameters and things to flip between different measures to look at or stuff like that. But what I would really also love to do is the ability to change the visual that they're looking at. So instead of a line, I want a bar, right? Or maybe I just want the bar, I don't want the line and the bar. Or maybe I also want a table in here. And all of this mimicked authoring sense. I don't want them to necessarily, especially if they're accessing it through a web browser in Tableau server, they're not going to have the ability to drag and drop fields out there. But I want them to have some sort of ability to customize that visual feel for themselves. This is another fun one using filter actions and those dynamic dashboards or dynamic layout containers that we talked about to do that. And so again, let me show you what happens if I select. Here we go. So I've selected the layout container, and you can see here the layout container actually includes this parameter select, this parameter select right here, and you see these little lines. This is an indicator that I've got some other dashboards in here, some other sheets, but they're hidden right now because these filter actions that we had set up. So there's the bar, there's the line, there's the scatter, there's the table. When I select on bar, have bar chart. So let me walk you through how that looks like just a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and select bar. And this in and of itself, go to sheet, is a hidden one. This is exactly what Tracy showed you earlier on. You build a sheet, and then you hook up filter actions to it and kind of use it as a visual filter. So this is this little thing right here. This is a sheet, this is a sheet, this is a sheet, this is a sheet right here. And then there's another sheet that's been built. This one's been hidden as well. Unhide that. Make sure. Okay. This is the bar button, and this is the bar chart itself. And the action that exists effectively says, when I click on that bar sheet, I want you to filter and select information for the bar chart. When it's unselected, again, this is the important part, especially when we're using those layout containers, exclude all values. And in this way, it's not as if the sheet disappears altogether, right? It's still there. If I can select it, right? It's still here. It's just a blank. It's a blank sheet. There's nothing on it. And so Tableau visually doesn't represent anything until you click on the layout container, and it kind of gives you an indication something's going on here. Anyway, this is a really fun thing to do, especially when you're dealing with people who want an even more interactive scenario than maybe going between sheets. They just want everything available, maybe stacking on top of each other, maybe not. You can get into a little bit of trouble here. This one's not highly formatted. I've seen some that are really pretty. But they can choose different things here, and they don't necessarily want multiple dashboards. And you've also got a limited amount of space. Filter actions are great for that. And then you toss in the ability to cut between different data sources and all sorts of stuff. And it's really, really, really cool. And let me just check and see. Are there any questions on some of the stuff I've covered? It's really just more advanced filter actions as well as a little bit of that URL action stuff. Those things in combination with each other are pretty cool. Let me see. I thought I had another one that I thought was pretty cool. Tracy's already showed you. Will this workbook be posted? Absolutely. We can post this workbook. One of the things we're actually looking at, and this is actually a perfect time to say this, is we're actually thinking about making a Think Data Thursday group. So if any of you guys have ever been to our community site, let me just pop a web browser here. If you guys haven't visited this already, it's really cool. As community manager, my job to talk all about it. Here we go. Community.tablewsoftware.com. We've got all these groups inside the group section. Right? A lot of these are local area Tableau user groups that a lot of you are involved in, but we're thinking about actually making an interest group, Think Data Thursday. So we could say this one's about healthcare, but we might be able to say every time, instead of having to create a new forum post and go hunting for forum posts, making a forum area, a group area where we could post the videos for this, the workbooks for this, have conversations about it. So we might be asking for some feedback on whether or not we think that's a good idea, but it's something we're thinking about. Great question, Sean. All right, so let me show you one last thing that I think is just really, really cool. Oh, here we go. Where is that? So this is another sports one that I created. And again, I did a lot of sports stuff early on here, which is funny because I'm not even really that huge a sports fan. It was just something that they needed someone to cover. This is kind of the ultimate evolution, if you will, of filter actions and parameters being used with heavy-duty, formatting and an image object up here, which is a gradiated header, which blends right into a background color, and then using custom images and filter actions to kind of mimic buttons. Right, so this is kind of that ultimate evolution of using filter actions to be filter buttons. So I've got Miami versus Philadelphia here, and I can say, show me everything, all the shots taken. This is kind of a shot court map from the first quarter, right? Show me all from the second quarter. Show me all of them all together. Or maybe limit that to just LeBron when he was playing for them, something like that. We can play this game. And this is exactly the same approach that we'd seen in the other one, right? In that previous workbook where it was each one of these is a separate sheet, and it's a custom shape. It's a little shape that I built inside of MS Paint or something like that. It says first quarter, and I scaled it up really big so that when it comes on onto the sheet here, it looks good. So each one of these is separate, and it's got a filter action. So here's the actual court itself. And again, all of those actions, let's go to the heat map itself. So say the actions on the dashboard, right? Each one of these, I should get better about naming my sheets, but each one of these is a separate filter action. 4 of them for all 4 quarters, and then the last one, the fifth one, is that total. And all that is doing is just filter based on quarter. And this is another cool thing that when you set up a filter action, a lot of times the all fields select will happen automatically. And in this case, there's other data involved in some of these sheets that would have filtered my view to something I didn't want. And so I'm actually controlling that filter action to say, you know what, don't filter on all the data on all the players. Just filter that sheet number 1, that actual court view, with the quarter information. Limit to that piece of data. And you can, obviously put in any piece of data that is in both sheets there for it to talk about. But that's really handy because, if I had other data in here that I did not want this to be filtered on, I just wanted to be, filtered on quarter, it's pretty handy. So I think, I could keep going for a long time on this. So I'm going to kind of pause here and ask and see if there are any questions. And then I also wanted to check with Tracy on time and agenda?
Well, so I think it looks like we have about 15 or 20 minutes left.
Okay.
Sean, I know you said that you had a workbook. Are you still interested in sharing that? Let's see where you are. Okay, let me see here. I'm gonna unmute you.
And then I'll toss presenter controls over to Sean. Actually, I think Tracy, you're going to need to do that.
Okay. All right. Oh, we have a question from Jose. Okay. Sorry, just a moment here. Okay, Jose, why don't you ask your question? I just took you off mute, and I'll send Sean the presenter controls. Jose, did you have a question?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
So am I up?
Yes, you're up, Sean.
You guys covered a lot of what the things that this particular workbook uses for actions, but one that you didn't touch on, so I'll just do it quickly, is the problem that I had. This was a guided analytics, and we were basically trying to go from, here, select these, and then we get another map down here to give you some more stuff. Well, this was kind of busy and messy, and I didn't really want that to happen, and it didn't really function the way I wanted it to. Let me go to the other workbook that's functioning correctly. Wow, that's weird. I guess I ended up with 2 without. And so then the whole point was to go from the stores, their names, then to go over to a zip code map that then had different metrics on it depending on what the buyers were interested in. And then to get it to clear, you would clear this one, and that would disappear just like you guys were doing, and then you'd clear this one, and that would disappear this one. That was fine as long as you did it that way, but if you went ahead and cleared, that's not so good. Let's do this guy. Let's go up to 10. Then if you cleared here, I've got it set up so they're both clearing. But just to show you the actions, let's go here. The one that gave me trouble was action number 3, and that was it wasn't working the way I wanted to until I started doing the run on single only. And let me show you why. If I do run on single only, then I get this one map and I get this one. If I do a multiple select, I get all of these, but if it would have come up here, it would have been just a complete mess. So it gives us an opportunity to do guided stuff. So anyway, and then the only other action you guys didn't show was one that Richard did. Which was highlighting action. In this one, he set it up so that the labels would only show up when you were hover over. And this one label here gives you the total of everything that's in that zip area. And then we're always constantly looking to see what's inside and outside a zip. Should we buy that zip? Should we go ahead and direct mail to that zip? Or is it too much outside or too much inside? So those are the two main actions that we use a lot.
That's cool. Thank you for sharing with us, Sean. I don't actually think I knew about the single select. I just don't really use that one very often.
Okay. So that's it for me.
Did anybody have any questions for Sean or for Dustin or I? Or me, I should say. No, it doesn't look like it. So maybe people have, so it looks like Sean uses it a lot to, see where the best places to sell are and things like that. What are other times that people use actions for in their everyday businesses? Or anyone? Okay. Well, I hope this was useful for a bunch of people. Oh, where are the workbooks that Dustin shared going to be posted? So if we set up that group, I'll probably post them in there. Otherwise, I'll post them to the forum threads that we have going regarding this topic. And they'll just be right up there. So I'll either way, I'll respond to the forum thread and either direct you towards the group, or you'll see it on the thread. Oh, good. I'm glad it was helpful, Peter. So with that, it looks like we're almost out of time anyway. We've been here for about 50 minutes. So unless anybody has any last-minute questions or anything, I guess we'll wrap this up. Keep your heads thinking about what you want to talk about next week, or in 2 weeks, I should say. And hopefully, if anyone wants to be a presenter or has anything very specific, go ahead and reply to the forum post, and we'll hopefully have another good session. So thank you all again for coming, and I hope to see you in 2 weeks.